Ambassador Zixthara stepped off the transport ship onto Galactic Station. Nexa 7. The metal floors made soft clicking sounds under their feet. The Corvani diplomat looked around the busy station with large, dark eyes. Hundreds of different alien species walked through the corridors. Some had fur, others had scales, and a few floated in the air using special suits. Zixthara had never seen humans before. The Corvani Empire had only learned about Earth 3 months ago. These humans were new to the galaxy. Most species took hundreds of years to reach the stars. Humans did it much faster. This made the Corvani leaders nervous. The ambassador's mission was simple. Meet the humans, learn about their technology, make a basic trade deal, then go home. Nothing complicated. Zixthara had done this job for 20 years with dozens of species. It was always the same boring routine. A tall human walked toward them. He had short brown hair and wore a blue uniform with shiny metal pins. Behind him came a smaller human with long black hair tied back. She also wore the same blue uniform. "Ambassador Zixthara?" the tall human asked. His voice was deep and calm. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison from Earth's Diplomatic Corps. This is Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez." Zixthara nodded their head. This was the human way of greeting, according to the files. "Captain Morrison, Lieutenant Rodriguez, I am honored to meet you." Jake smiled, showing white teeth. Zixthara found this strange. On their homeworld, showing teeth meant anger or threat. But humans seemed to do it when they were happy. "Very odd creatures. Welcome to Nexus 7, Amy said. Her voice was higher than Jake's, but just as friendly. "We've prepared quarters for you in Section C. The gravity there matches your homeworld." "Thank you," Zixthara replied. They followed the humans through the station's main corridor. The walls were covered with screens showing news from different worlds. Some showed wars, others showed celebrations. The galaxy was always busy. As they walked, Jake talked about the station. Nexus 7 is neutral territory. No weapons allowed except for security forces. We have representatives from 47 different species here. It's the perfect place for peaceful meetings. Zixthara listened, but didn't really care. They had heard similar speeches before. Every species thought their space station was special. The Corvani ambassador just wanted to finish this job and return home to their quiet office. They reached the guest quarters. The rooms were simple but clean. A bed, a desk, and a food dispenser. Everything Zixthara needed. "We'll let you rest." Jake said, "Tomorrow we can start our discussions about trade agreements. Earth has many resources that might interest the Corvani Empire." "Very good," Zixthara agreed. "I look forward to productive negotiations." Amy stepped forward. "Actually, Captain Morrison and I were wondering if you'd like to join us for dinner tonight. It's a human custom to share meals during diplomatic meetings. We find it helps build trust." Zixthara's stomach made a small sound. They were hungry. The long trip from the Corvani homeworld had been tiring. Food would be good. Dinner would be acceptable, the ambassador said. "What time?" 1800 hours, Jake replied. "We'll meet you at the human section's dining area." After the humans left, Zixthara unpacked their few belongings. They pulled out a small container of nutritional paste. This was standard Corvani food. It contained all the vitamins and minerals needed to survive. The paste was gray and had no taste. All Corvani ate the same thing every day. Food was fuel for the body, nothing more. Zixthara ate a small amount of paste to stop their hunger. Then they reviewed files about human culture. The reports were strange. Humans seemed to spend a lot of time preparing food. They had thousands of different dishes. Some humans even made cooking their job. This seemed wasteful to Zixthara. "Why?" Spend hours making food when Paste did the same job in minutes? Humans were clearly not very efficient. The ambassador spent the afternoon reading trade proposals. Earth wanted to export something called coffee and chocolate. The Corvani had never heard of these items. Humans also wanted metals and rare crystals. This was normal. Every species wanted resources. As evening came, Zixthara felt nervous. They had eaten with other species before, but it was always the same. Nutrient cubes, protein blocks, or algae drinks. Every intelligent species in the galaxy had learned that food should be simple and functional. The ambassador walked to the human section of the station. The corridors here looked different. The walls had pictures of green landscapes and blue skies. Soft music played from hidden speakers. It was much more colorful than other parts of the station. When Zixthara reached the dining area, they stopped. In surprise, the room was filled with amazing smells. Sweet, spicy, rich odors that they had never experienced before. Other aliens were already sitting at tables, eating with humans. Everyone looked happy and relaxed. Jake waved from a corner table. "Ambassador, over here." As Zixthara walked closer, the smells grew stronger. Their nose twitched. Their mouth began to make extra saliva. This had never happened before. What was causing this strange reaction? "Please, sit down," Amy said, pulling out a chair. "We've ordered a selection of dishes to share. I hope you're hungry." Zixthara sat down and looked at the table. There were plates and bowls of different sizes. Shiny metal tools lay beside each plate. Everything looked much more complex than normal eating equipment. "Don't worry," Jake laughed, seeing the ambassador's confused expression. "We'll show you how to use everything." Human dining can seem complicated at first. A human female approached their table. She had red hair and wore a white coat. "Good evening," she said cheerfully. "I'm Chef Maria Santos. I'll be preparing your meal tonight. Do you have any food allergies or dietary restrictions?" Zixthara stared at her. "Food allergies? Some species can't eat certain ingredients," Amy explained. "We want to make sure everything is safe for you." I do not know," the ambassador admitted. "Corvani only eat nutritional paste." Chef Maria's eyes went wide. "Only paste? Your whole life?" "Yes, it provides all necessary nutrients." The chef looked sad. "Oh, you poor thing. Well, tonight we're going to change that. I'll start you with something mild and work up to more complex flavors." She walked away, leaving Zixthara more confused than before. Complex flavors? What did that mean? Jake poured clear liquid from a bottle into Zixthara's glass. "This is water. Humans drink it pure, not processed into paste." The ambassador sipped the water. It tasted clean, fresh, different from the recycled liquid on Corvani ships. "Here we go," Chef Maria announced, returning with a large tray. Starting. Simple, she placed a small plate in front of Zixthara. On it was something golden and warm. Steam rose from its surface, carrying a smell that made the ambassador's mouth water even more. "What is this?" Zixthara asked. "Bread," Amy replied. "Made from grain, flour, water, and yeast. Very basic human food." Zixthara picked up the bread with their fingers. It was soft and warm. They took a small bite. The world changed. Zixthara's eyes went wide as the bread touched their tongue. The taste was completely new. It was warm and soft, with a gentle sweetness that seemed to wake up parts of their mouth they never knew existed. The texture was amazing, not smooth, like paste, but with tiny air bubbles that made it light and fluffy. "Are you all right?" Jake asked, looking concerned. The Corvani ambassador had gone completely still, holding the piece of bread halfway to their mouth. Zixthara couldn't speak. They took another bite, then another. Each time, new sensations flooded their mind. The bread had a crust that was slightly crispy, different from the soft inside. There were subtle flavors that seemed to change as they chewed. "I think they like it," Amy whispered to Jake with a smile. Chef Maria returned with more plates. "Here's the main course," she announced proudly. Herb-crusted salmon with garlic mashed potatoes and roasted vegetables. Zixthara stared at the new food. The salmon was pink and flaky, covered with green herbs. The potatoes were white and smooth, with small yellow bits mixed in. The vegetables were different colors, orange, green, and red, all glistening with what looked like oil. "This is fish," Jake explained, pointing to the salmon. "It lived in Earth's oceans. The green stuff is herbs, plants we grow for flavor." "Flavor?" Zixthara asked, still confused by the word. "Taste," Amy said. "Things that make food more enjoyable to eat." This concept was foreign to the Corvani ambassador. Food was fuel. Why would anyone want it to be enjoyable? But the bread had been more than just fuel. It had been ... pleasant, very pleasant. Chef Maria showed Zixthara how to use the metal tools, the fork and knife. Cut a small piece of fish, add some potato, and try them together. Zixthara followed the instructions carefully. They cut a piece of the pink fish and added some white potato to their fork. The smell was incredible, rich and complex, with hints of something sharp and something earthy. They put the food in their mouth and nearly fell off their chair. The salmon was buttery and delicate, with a taste that reminded them of the ocean, salty but clean. The herbs added brightness and freshness. The garlic in the potatoes was strong and warming, making their mouth tingle. All the flavors worked together like a symphony. "This is impossible," Zixthara whispered, their voice shaking. "What's impossible?" Jake asked. "Food cannot taste like this." "It is not logical." Amy laughed gently. "Human food is about more than just nutrition. We discovered thousands of years ago that eating can be one of life's great pleasures." Zixthara tried the vegetables next. The carrots were sweet and tender. The green beans had a fresh, crisp taste. The red peppers were slightly spicy, making their tongue warm. Each vegetable tasted completely different, yet they all worked together on the plate. "How many different foods do humans eat?" the ambassador asked between bites. "Thousands," Chef Maria replied. "Maybe tens of thousands. Every region of Earth has its own cuisine. We use hundreds of different spices, cooking methods, and ingredients." This information shocked Zixthara. The Corvani had one food, nutritional: paste. They had eaten the same gray mixture for their entire existence. But humans had created thousands of different tastes. "Why?" Zixthara asked. "Why make so many different foods?" Jake thought for a moment. "I guess because we can. And because it makes us happy. Food brings people together. We celebrate with special meals. We show love by cooking for each other. Food shows love." This concept made no sense to the Corvani ambassador. "My grandmother taught me to cook," Amy said softly. Every Sunday, she would make a big meal for the whole family. It took her hours, but she did it because she loved us. When I eat her recipes now, I remember her. Zixthara stopped eating. "Food helps you remember?" "Oh, yes," Chef Maria nodded. "Taste and smell are connected to memory. One bite of my mother's soup can take me back to childhood." The ambassador tried to understand this. Corvani had memories, but they were not connected to food. Food was just fuel. But now, as they tasted these amazing new flavors, they could imagine remembering this moment forever. "There's more," Chef Maria announced, bringing another plate. "Dessert." On the plate was something brown and rich-looking. It was shaped like a small tower, with white cream on top and red berries around the edge. "This is chocolate cake," the chef explained. "Sweet food that we eat at the end of meals." Sweet? Zixtara had never heard this word before. "Try it." Jake encouraged. Zixtara cut a small piece with their fork. The cake was soft and dark. The white cream was smooth and light. They put it in their mouth, and their eyes rolled back. The sweetness hit them like a wave. It was rich and deep, with flavors that seemed to dance on their tongue. The chocolate was intense and complex, with hints of vanilla and butter. The cream was cool and smooth, balancing the richness of the cake. The berries added bright, tart notes that made everything else taste even better. "This is not food," Zixtara said in wonder. "This is magic." The humans laughed, but not in a mean way. They seemed happy that their guest was enjoying the meal. "Magic is a good word for it," Chef Maria agreed. "Good food can feel magical." Zixtara finished every bite of the dessert. They had never felt so satisfied after eating. Their body felt warm and content. But more than that, their mind felt happy. Actually happy from eating. "How do you make such things?" the ambassador asked. "It takes time and practice," the chef replied, "and good ingredients. The salmon came from wild fish in Alaska. The herbs grew in my garden. The chocolate was made from cacao beans from South America. Each ingredient comes from a different place. Sometimes, humans have been trading foods for thousands of years. We learned that combining ingredients from different places creates amazing new flavors." As the evening continued, Jake and Amy told Zixtara about human food culture. They talked about restaurants where people went just to eat amazing food. They described cooking shows where humans competed to make the best dishes. They mentioned food festivals where entire cities celebrated different cuisines. On Earth, we have Italian food, Chinese food, Mexican food, Indian food, Amy explained. Each culture developed its own way of cooking. "And you eat all of them?" Zixtara asked. "Sure, that's part of what makes human food so exciting. We're always trying new things." The ambassador thought about their own planet. Every Corvani ate the same paste every day. No one ever tried anything new. No one ever talked about food. No one seemed to care about it at all. "I have a question," Zixtara said carefully. "Do other species eat like this?" Jake and Amy looked at each other. "Well, no," Jake admitted. "Most aliens we've met eat pretty basic food. Nutrient blocks, protein cubes, algae drinks. They seem to think of food as just fuel." "Like us," Zixtara said quietly. "Like you used to," Amy corrected with a smile as the evening ended. Chef Maria brought out samples of other human foods. There was cheese, aged milk with a sharp, complex flavor. There was wine, fermented fruit juice that made Zixtara's head feel light. There were nuts and fruits and tiny chocolates filled with different creams. Each new taste was a revelation. The ambassador's world was expanding with every bite. They had lived for 43 years, eating nothing but gray paste. Now they discovered that food could be art, could be pleasure, could be joy. "Thank you," Zixtara said as they prepared to leave. "This has been educational." "We're glad you enjoyed it," Jake replied. "Tomorrow we can discuss those trade agreements." But as Zixtara walked back to their quarters, they weren't thinking about trade agreements. They were thinking about the salmon, the chocolate cake, the fresh bread. Their mouths still held traces of the amazing flavors. For the first time in their life, they were looking forward to the next meal back in their room. Zixtara looked at their container of nutritional paste. The gray mixture looked even more terrible than before. How had they eaten this stuff for so long? How had they thought it was adequate? They picked up their communication device to send a report to the Corvani Empire. But they didn't know what to write. How could they explain what had happened? How could they describe taste to people who had never experienced it? Instead, they put the device away and lay down on their bed. But sleep didn't come easily. Their mind kept returning to the dinner, to the incredible sensations, to the realization that they had been missing something wonderful their entire life. Tomorrow, they decided they would ask Chef Maria to teach them about human cooking. The trade negotiations could wait. Zixthara woke up thinking about food. This had never happened before. Usually, the first thing they thought about was work, reports to write, meetings to attend, diplomatic problems to solve. But today, their mind was filled with memories of salmon and chocolate cake. The ambassador tried to eat their morning nutritional paste, but it tasted like cardboard. The gray mixture that had satisfied them for decades now seemed horrible. How had they ever thought this was acceptable food? At exactly 900 hours, Jake Morrison arrived at Zixthara's quarters for their scheduled meeting. "Good morning, Ambassador," Jake said cheerfully. "Ready to discuss those trade agreements?" "Actually," Zixthara said carefully, "I was wondering if we could visit your kitchen first. I would like to learn more about human food preparation." Jake looked surprised but pleased. "Of course. Chef Maria would love to show you around. She's very proud of her work." They walked to the human section's kitchen. It was a large room filled with shiny metal equipment and wonderful smells. Chef Maria was already working, preparing lunch for the station's human crew. "Ambassador," she called out happily, "how did you sleep? Did you dream about chocolate cake?" Zixthara was embarrassed to admit that they had, in fact, dreamed about chocolate cake. "I slept well, thank you. I was hoping you could show me how human food is made." "I'd be delighted," Maria replied. "Let's start with something simple. How about scrambled eggs?" She led them to a cooking station where a large metal pan sat on a heating device. Maria cracked several white oval objects into a bowl and mixed them with a metal whisk. "These are chicken eggs," she explained. "Chickens are birds from Earth. They lay these eggs, and we collect them for food. You eat bird eggs?" Zixthara asked, fascinated. "Not just chicken eggs. Duck eggs, quail eggs, even fish eggs called caviar. Humans eat lots of different animal products." Maria poured oil into the hot pan. It sizzled and sent up aromatic steam. Then she added the mixed eggs. They immediately began to change color and texture, turning from clear liquid to fluffy yellow. "Curds. The heat changes the proteins in the eggs," Maria explained as she stirred gently. "This is called cooking. We use heat, cold, pressure, and time to transform raw ingredients into food." Zixthara watched in amazement as the liquid eggs became solid, fluffy, and golden. The smell was rich and comforting. When Maria offered them a taste, the ambassador was surprised by how creamy and satisfying the eggs were. "Each cooking method creates different results," Maria continued. "I could fry these eggs, boil them, poach them, or bake them. Each way would taste different." Over the next hour, Maria showed Zixthara many cooking techniques. She sautéed vegetables in hot oil, making them tender and flavorful. She grilled meat, creating crispy outsides and juicy insides. She baked bread, transforming simple flour and water into something magical. "The key is understanding how ingredients work together," Maria said as she chopped fresh herbs. "Garlic makes things taste richer. Lemon makes them brighter. Salt brings out other flavors." Zixthara tried to understand these concepts. On their homeworld, no one talked about making things taste richer or brighter. Food was fuel, but humans had turned eating into an art form. "Can I try?" the ambassador asked hesitantly. "Of course." Maria handed them a knife and showed them how to chop onions safely. Cooking is one of humanity's oldest skills. Everyone should know how to feed themselves well. The onions made Zixthara's eyes water, but Maria explained this was normal. The onions release chemicals when cut, she said, but when we cook them, they become sweet and delicious. She was right. The sharp, eye-watering onions transformed. In the hot pan, becoming golden and fragrant. Zixthara could hardly believe they were the same ingredient. Word spread quickly through the station that the Corvani ambassador was learning to cook. Other aliens began visiting the kitchen, curious about what was happening. Most had never seen food preparation before. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez found Zixthara 3 hours later, still in the kitchen, carefully stirring a pot of soup under Maria's guidance. "Ambassador," Amy said gently, "Captain Morrison is waiting for our trade meeting." Zixthara looked up, surprised. They had completely forgotten about the meeting. "Oh, yes, trade agreements." The soup smelled so good, it was hard to think about anything else. "The soup will be here when you get back," Maria promised. "Go handle your diplomatic duties." Reluctantly, Zixthara followed Amy to the meeting room. Captain Morrison was waiting with several data pads and trade proposals. "Sorry to keep you waiting," the ambassador said. "I was learning about human cooking methods." "No problem," Jake replied. "I hear you're becoming quite the chef." They spent the next 2 hours discussing trade between Earth and the Corvani Empire. But Zixthara found it hard to concentrate. Their mind kept drifting back to the kitchen, to the wonderful smells and the satisfaction of creating something delicious with their own hands. "The Corvani Empire is interested in your metals and rare crystals," Zixthara said, reading from their notes. "In exchange, we offer advanced navigation technology and quantum communications equipment." "That sounds fair," Jake agreed. "But I'm curious. Would the Corvani Empire be interested in food products?" Zixthara paused. "Food products? Spices, for example. Or coffee beans, tea leaves, things that could improve the taste of your nutritional paste." The ambassador thought about this. Could they convince their people to try new flavors? The Corvani had eaten the same paste for thousands of years. Change would be difficult. I would need to ask my superiors," Zixthara said finally. After the meeting, they hurried back to the kitchen. The soup was ready, a rich, golden liquid filled with vegetables and herbs. Maria ladled it into a bowl and handed it to the ambassador. With a thick slice of fresh bread, the first spoonful was incredible. The broth was savory and warming, with layers of flavor that seemed to unfold on their tongue. The vegetables were tender, but still had texture. The herbs added brightness and complexity. "This is chicken soup," Maria explained. "Humans eat it when we're sick or sad. It's comfort food." Comfort food? Food that makes us feel better emotionally. Not just physically. Zixthara understood. The soup did make them feel comforted, safe, and happy. Food could affect emotions? This was another revelation. Over the following days, their routine changed completely. Instead of spending all their time in meetings or writing reports, Zixthara spent hours in the kitchen. They learned to make pasta, long, thin noodles served with rich tomato sauce. They discovered pizza, bread topped with cheese, vegetables, and meat, then baked until bubbling. Chef Maria introduced them to Tony, who ran the station's pizzeria. Tony was a large, cheerful man with flour always dusting his hands. "You want to learn pizza?" Tony asked. "Good. Pizza is about passion, about love. You put your heart into the dough." He showed Zixthara how to stretch pizza dough, how to spread, sauce evenly, how to choose toppings that worked well together. The ambassador's first pizza was lumpy and uneven, but it tasted amazing. "Not bad for a first try," Tony laughed. "You have natural talent." Sergeant Mike Phillips introduced Zixthara to barbecue. He cooked large pieces of meat slowly over smoky fires, basting them with spicy sauces. The meat became incredibly tender, falling apart at the touch of a fork. Barbecue is about patience, Mike explained. Low heat, long time. Can't rush good. Food. Engineer Katie Bell taught them about baking. She made cookies, cakes, and pastries in the station's small bakery. Her chocolate chip cookies were warm and gooey, with pockets of melted chocolate that made Zixthara's eyes roll back in pleasure. Baking is like chemistry, Katie said as she measured flour precisely. Everything has to be exact, or the recipe won't work. Each human had their own specialty, their own favorite foods. Dr. Lisa Chong made spicy stir-fries with vegetables that stayed crisp and colorful. Maintenance worker Bob Taylor grilled the best hamburgers on the station, thick patties of seasoned meat topped with cheese, lettuce, and tomatoes. Food brings people together, Bob said as they shared burgers at lunch. Look around. Humans, aliens, all eating together. That's special. Zixthara looked around the dining area. Bob was right. Species that barely spoke to each other were sharing. Tables, trying each other's food, laughing together. The kitchen had become a place of friendship and discovery. But the most amazing discovery came when other aliens began asking Zixthara to teach them what they had learned. A Viltari engineer wanted to know how to make bread. A Zephyrian trader asked about soup recipes. Even the normally proud hegemony representative quietly requested cooking lessons. You've started something, Jake told the ambassador one evening. Half the aliens on this station are learning to cook now. Zixthara felt proud, but also worried. Their original mission, the trade negotiations, had barely progressed. They were supposed to be a diplomat, not a cooking student. But every time they tried to focus on work, the wonderful smells from the kitchen called to them. Captain Morrison, they said carefully, I may need to extend my stay on the station. For the trade negotiations? For further cultural research. Jake smiled. Take all the time you need, Ambassador. I think you're doing something more important than anyone realized. That night, Zixthara sent another report to the Corvani Empire. But instead of writing about metals and crystals, they found Encels D. 3 months had passed since Zixthara first tasted human food. The Corvani ambassador had ignored 4 direct orders to return home. Each message from their superiors became more urgent, more threatening. But Zixthara couldn't bring themselves to leave. The problem was getting worse. The ambassador could no longer eat Corvani nutritional paste at all. Even the smell of the gray mixture made them sick. Their body had changed, adapted to human cuisine. It craved the complex flavors, the different textures, the emotional satisfaction that came with every meal. You look thin, Dr. Lisa Chong observed during one of their regular meetings. She had been documenting Zixthara's transformation for her research. Are you eating enough? I eat constantly, Zixthara replied, stirring a pot of soup in the kitchen. But nothing satisfies me the way it used to. This was true. The ambassador spent most of their day in the kitchen now, cooking, tasting, learning new recipes. They had mastered dozens of dishes: Italian pasta, Chinese stir-fry, Mexican tacos, Indian curry. Each cuisine opened new worlds of flavor, but it was never enough. They needed more variety, more complexity, more of the joy that came with discovering new tastes. The simple pleasure of eating had become an obsession. Ambassador, Commander Steve Parker said, entering the kitchen with a concerned expression. We need to talk. Steve was the station's military liaison, responsible for security. He was a serious man who rarely smiled, and he looked especially grim today. What's wrong? Zixthara asked, not looking up from their cooking. Your government has filed a formal complaint. They say you've been compromised by alien influence. They're sending a ship to collect you. Zixthara's hands shook. They had been dreading this moment. When? 3 days? The wooden spoon fell from the ambassador's hands. 3 days. In 3 days, they would be forced to return to a world of gray paste and flavorless meals. The thought was unbearable. Can you refuse to go? Dr. Chong asked gently. I am a Corvani citizen. I must obey my government. But even as they said it, Zixthara knew they couldn't do it. They couldn't give up everything they had discovered. That evening, Jake Morrison found the ambassador sitting alone in the dining area, staring at an untouched plate of food. Not hungry? Jake asked, sitting down across from them. How can I go back? Zixthara said quietly. How can I return to eating paste when I know what food can really be? Jake was quiet for a moment. Maybe you don't have to. What do you mean? Apply for asylum. Stay on the station. Earth would be happy to have you as a cultural exchange representative. Zixthara looked up hopefully, then shook their head. I cannot abandon my duties. My people depend on me. Do they? Or do they depend on having you follow orders without? Question? This thought troubled the ambassador. For 3 months, they had been happier than ever before in their life. They had learned new skills, made friends with humans and other aliens, discovered joy in simple daily activities. But their government saw this as betrayal. The next day brought worse news. The Corvani ship had arrived early. Admiral Krevvin, Zixthara's direct superior, demanded an immediate meeting. Admiral Krevvin was everything Zixthara used to be: cold, efficient, focused only on duty. They met in the station's formal conference room, with Captain Morrison and Commander Parker present as witnesses. Ambassador Zixthara, the Admiral said in the flat, emotionless tone all Corvani used for official business. You have failed to return when ordered. You have ignored direct commands. Explain yourself. Zixthara tried to find words. How could they explain the revolution that had happened in their mind and body? How could they describe the joy of taste to someone who had never experienced it? I have been conducting important cultural research, they said finally. Cultural research? Admiral Krevvin's voice was sharp. You were sent to negotiate trade agreements. Instead, you spend your time playing with food like a child. The word playing made Zixthara angry. I am learning about a fundamental aspect of human civilization. Food is not just nutrition for them. It's art, culture, social bonding, emotional expression. Ridiculous. Food is fuel. Nothing more. That's what I used to think. But I was wrong. We are all wrong. Admiral Krevvin stood up abruptly. You will return with me immediately. You clearly need medical evaluation and re-education. Re-education? Captain Morrison interrupted. Ambassador Zixthara is a guest on this station. They're free to leave or stay as they choose. They are a Corvani citizen under my authority, the Admiral snapped. Actually, Commander Parker said carefully, the ambassador has requested asylum. Under galactic law, we must consider their request. Admiral Krevvin's eyes went wide. Asylum? On what grounds? Zixthara stood up slowly. The words came from somewhere deep inside, somewhere they didn't know existed 3 months ago. On the grounds that I have discovered who I really am, and I cannot go back to being who I was. This is insane, the Admiral said. You are suffering from some form of mental illness. These humans have poisoned your mind. They have opened my mind, Zixthara replied. For the first time in my life, I understand what it means to truly live, not just exist. The meeting ended badly. Admiral Krevvin stormed out, threatening to involve the Galactic Council. Zixthara was left shaking, terrified of what they had done, but unable to regret it. That night, they couldn't sleep. They walked through the station's corridors, ending up in the kitchen where they had spent so many happy hours. Chef Maria was there, preparing dough for tomorrow's bread. Can't sleep? She asked kindly. I may have just destroyed my entire life. Zixthara, it did. Or maybe you just started living it, Maria replied. Here, help me with this dough. Working with your hands helps clear the mind. They kneaded bread dough together in comfortable silence. The repetitive motion was soothing, and the smell of yeast and flour was comforting. But Zixthara's mind was in turmoil. What if I'm wrong? They asked. What if I'm just being selfish? My people need me. Do they need you? Or do they need someone? Who will never question, never change, never grow? Maria asked gently. I don't know anymore. Then maybe that's your answer. If you don't know, you need time to figure it out. And you can't do that if you're forced to go back. The next morning brought a crisis. Several other alien diplomats on the station had also refused orders to return home. The Veltari engineer, who had learned to bake bread, the Zephyrian trader, who had mastered pasta making, the hegemony representative, who had discovered the joy of grilled vegetables. It's spreading, Dr. Chong told the station's senior staff. I'm calling it culinary awakening syndrome. Once they experience complex flavors and food culture, they can't go back to their original diets. Is it dangerous? Commander Parker asked. Physically? No. But psychologically, it's profound. They're experiencing something their species has never known. The pleasure of eating. It's changing their brain chemistry. Admiral Krevvin was furious. You are corrupting our people with your your food addiction. It's not addiction, Jake Morrison argued. It's appreciation. They're discovering something beautiful. It's unnatural. It's wrong. But even as the Admiral spoke, Zixthara noticed something. The Corvani officer kept glancing at the kitchen, where wonderful smells were always drifting. Out, their nose would twitch slightly, and they would swallow as if their mouth was producing extra saliva. Admiral, Zixthara said suddenly, when did you last eat? I consumed my nutritional paste this morning, as always. But you're hungry now. I am not, the Admiral stopped. They were hungry. The smells from the kitchen were making them feel something they had never experienced before. Just try one bite, Zixthara pleaded. One small taste, then tell me I'm wrong. Absolutely not. But Zixthara could see the curiosity in their superior's eyes. The same curiosity that had led to their own transformation. That afternoon, disaster struck. The other alien governments had banded together to demand their citizens' return. They threatened to ban all trade with the station if their people weren't released immediately. We're going to have to let them go, Commander Parker told the human. Staff, we can't afford to lose trade relationships with half the galaxy. Zixthara felt their world collapsing. Not just their own world, but the new world they had discovered. A world of flavor and joy and shared meals. There has to be another way, they said desperately. That evening, they made a decision that surprised everyone, including themselves. They went to Admiral Krevvin's quarters and knocked on the door. Admiral, I have a proposal. I'm listening. Give me 1 week, 7 days to show you what I've learned. If, at the end of that week, you still think I'm wrong, I'll return home. Willingly. But if you see what I see, if you understand what I understand, then help me find a way to share this with our people. Admiral Krevvin was quiet for a long moment. And if I refuse, then I'll return anyway. But I'll spend the rest of my life knowing that I could have given our people something wonderful, and I failed. The Admiral stared at them for a long time. Finally, they nodded. 1 week. But at the first sign that you're trying to corrupt me, I'll drag you home in chains. Zixthara smiled. It was the first time they had smiled in days. Thank you, Admiral. You won't regret this. But as they walked back to their quarters, Zixthara wondered if they had just made the biggest mistake of their life. They had 1 week to change the... Zixthara had never been more nervous in their life. Admiral Krevthin was the most traditional Corvani they knew, someone who followed every rule, questioned nothing, and believed that change was dangerous. Converting them to appreciate human cuisine seemed impossible. But they had to try. "We'll start simple," Zixthara told Chef Maria as they planned the week's meals. "Nothing too shocking. Just basic flavors." "Are you sure?" Maria asked. "Sometimes a big surprise works better than small steps." Not with Admiral Krevthin. They need to understand each change before moving to the next one. The first meal was breakfast. Zixthara invited the Admiral to their quarters and served them fresh orange juice. "What is this liquid?" Admiral Krevthin asked suspiciously. "Juice from a fruit called an orange. It grows on trees on Earth." The Admiral took a tiny sip and made a face. "It's acidic, but also sweet. Try another sip." Reluctantly, the Admiral did. This time, they paused. "The sweetness balances the acid," they said, surprised. "Yes, humans call this flavor balance. Different tastes working together." They also served simple scrambled eggs, plain, with just a little salt. The Admiral ate them without complaint, but also without enthusiasm. "They're different from paste," Admiral Krevthin admitted. "But I don't understand why you find them so appealing." Zixthara was patient. "Tomorrow will be different." The second day brought soup, the same chicken soup that had comforted Zixthara months earlier. They watched as the Admiral took their first spoonful. Admiral Krevthin stopped mid-swallow. Their eyes widened slightly. "What did you put in this?" they asked. "Chicken, vegetables, herbs, salt. Simple ingredients, but they've been cooked together slowly. The flavors are complex." "Yes, that's what cooking does. It creates complexity from simple parts." The Admiral ate the entire bowl without realizing it. When they finished, they sat quietly for several minutes. "I feel satisfied," they said finally. "Not just full, satisfied." "That's the beginning," Zixthara said softly. By the third day, word had spread through the station. The impossible was happening. Admiral Krevthin was learning to appreciate food. Other aliens watched hopefully. If the strictest Corvani could change, maybe their own governments would listen. For lunch, Zixthara served pasta with tomato sauce and fresh basil. The Admiral picked up the fork awkwardly, but managed to eat without help. "The green leaves," they said, pointing to the basil. "Basil, it's an herb. It makes everything taste brighter." Zixthara smiled. The Admiral was starting to understand flavor concepts. That afternoon, Admiral Krevthin did something unexpected. They asked to visit the kitchen. "I want to see how this food is made," they said. Chef Maria was delighted to show them around. She demonstrated how to salt onions, how they changed from sharp and harsh to sweet and golden. "The heat transforms them?" the Admiral asked. "Heat, time, and a little oil," Maria confirmed. "Cooking is about transformation." Admiral Krevthin watched carefully as Maria prepared dinner, roasted chicken with herbs and vegetables. They asked questions about every step, every ingredient. "Why do you add that spice?" "Rosemary brings out the flavor of the chicken and makes it more savory." "And the salt?" "Salt enhances all the other flavors. It makes everything taste more like itself." The Admiral was beginning to understand that cooking was not random. It was a science, an art, a skill that required knowledge and practice. On the fourth day, something important happened. Admiral Krevthin refused their morning nutritional paste. "It tastes like nothing," they said with disgust. "How did I eat this for so long?" Zixthara felt a surge of hope. The transformation was working. For breakfast, they served fresh fruit, oranges, apples, and berries. The Admiral marveled at how each fruit had its own distinct flavor. "How many different tastes do humans know?" they asked. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. Every culture on Earth has its own cuisine. And they're all different? Completely different. Italian food is nothing like Chinese food. Mexican food is nothing like Indian food. Admiral Krevfin was quiet for a long time. Our people have been eating the same thing for 1,000 years. Yes, we've missed so much. That evening, Zixthara took a big risk. They served the Admiral chocolate cake, the same dessert that had amazed them months earlier. Admiral Krevfin took one bite and went completely still. Their eyes closed. For a moment, Zixthara thought they had made a mistake, that the sweetness was too much. Then the Admiral opened their eyes, and there were tears. "This is not food," they whispered. "This is joy," Zixthara nodded. "Now you understand." On the 5th day, Admiral Krevfin made an announcement to the other alien diplomats on the station. "I was wrong," they said simply. "We have all been wrong. These humans have not corrupted us. They have given us a gift." The room was silent. No one had ever heard a Corvani admit to being wrong. "What kind of gift?" asked the Veltari representative. "The gift of pleasure, of joy in simple daily activities, of understanding that life can be more than just survival." That day, Admiral Krevfin learned to cook their first meal, scrambled eggs with herbs. Their hands shook as they cracked the eggs, but they managed to create something edible. "I made this," they said with wonder, looking at the plate. "I created food with my own hands." "How does it feel?" Zixthara asked. "Powerful, like I'm truly alive for the first time." On the 6th day, the Admiral sent a message to the Corvani Empire. But instead of ordering Zixthara's return, they requested permission to extend the mission. "We need more time to fully understand human culture," they reported. "This could be the most important discovery in our species' history." The response was immediate and angry. "Return both ambassadors immediately." Admiral Krevfin deleted the message. The 7th day was different from the others. Instead of trying new foods, they cooked together. Admiral Krevfin, Zixthara, and several human friends. They made pizza, with everyone adding their own toppings as they waited for the pizza to bake. Admiral Krevfin spoke quietly to Zixthara. "When we return home, they will try to make us forget this. I know. They will say we are sick, that we need treatment. Yes. But how can we forget joy? How can we pretend that gray paste is adequate when we know what food can really be?" Zixthara had no answer. But they didn't need one, because Admiral Krevfin continued. "We cannot go back. But we also cannot abandon our people to ignorance. What do you suggest?" Admiral Krevfin smiled, the first genuine smile Zixthara had ever seen from their superior. "We bring them the gift, all of them." 6 months later, the first human restaurant opened on the Corvani homeworld. It was small, serving only basic dishes, but the lines stretched for kilometers. Corvani, who had never imagined that food could have flavor, waited hours for a simple bowl of soup or a piece of fresh bread. Admiral Krevfin became the Corvani Empire's first Minister of Culinary Affairs. They established cooking schools, imported human chefs as teachers, and gradually introduced their people to the wonders of HFY. Complex cuisine. Zixthara opened their own restaurant in the capital city. They specialized in fusion cuisine, combining human cooking techniques with ingredients from across the galaxy. It became the most popular establishment on the planet. But the real change was deeper than restaurants and cooking schools. For the first time in their history, Corvani families began sharing meals. They talked while they ate, laughed together, created memories around food. The cold, efficient society began to warm. Other species followed. The Veltari established bread-making cooperatives. The Zephyrians created spice trading routes. The hegemony, traditionally the most isolated species in the galaxy, began hosting dinner parties. Captain Jake Morrison received reports from across known space. Human restaurants opening on dozens of worlds. Interspecies cooking competitions. Diplomatic dinners, where treaties were negotiated over shared meals. "It's incredible, Dr. Lisa," Chong told him during one of their regular research meetings. "We've documented the phenomenon over 200 worlds now. Human cuisine isn't just changing how they eat, it's changing how they live." Jake looked out the window of Nexus 7 at the bustling station below. Aliens of every species walked together, many carrying food from the various restaurants that had opened. The sterile, efficient facility had become warm and social. "Who would have thought," he said, "that the key to galactic peace was a good meal?" Sixthara still remembered that first night, that first bite of bread that had changed everything. Sometimes, late at night in their restaurant kitchen, they would prepare simple bread just like Chef Maria had taught them. Each bite reminded them of the journey from gray paste to chocolate cake, from cold efficiency to warm joy, from merely existing to truly living. They had thought they were negotiating a trade agreement. Instead, they had discovered that humans had already conquered the galaxy, one meal at a time. The best part was that it was a conquest built on sharing, not taking. Humans had given their gift freely, asking nothing in return except the joy of seeing others discover what they had always known. That food, prepared with care and shared with love, was one of life's greatest pleasures. In the end, that was the most human thing of all.